speakers today. Well, entitled AI for Better AI, or Authentic Intelligence for Better Artificial Approximated Intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 15 years, he has been a driving force in the realm of test engineering and software quality leadership, whose expertise spans the entire spectrum of testing, from conceptualizing to the post-production phases of software delivery. Wearing multiple hats, he currently serves as an engineering manager at Essential Song, Germany, excels in leveraging testing as a catalyst for business and digital transformation. His proprietary framework has earned him the prestigious recognition at Eurostar 2020. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Lalit Kumar Bamare, Essential Song, Germany. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. How was the lunch? I heard great things about the desserts. Are we all in? Come on, Kuala Lumpur, give me some noise. That's very good. I have a fun story to tell you before I actually start my talk. I was supposed to be here yesterday evening, but Swiss Airlines decided to make my trip more fun. They canceled my flight and I reached around just 2 hours back. I haven't slept for 30 hours, but I'm very happy to be here. The reason for telling you all this is, if you observe me hallucinating on stage, stuttering, making things up, repeating myself intermittently, just think of it as my AI version on the stage and not really the authentic Lalit. And for everything that makes sense, we will figure it out. So how are you doing today? Very good. Have you had fun in conference so far? Fantastic. An important disclaimer before I introduce the topic. This is not an anti-AI talk. This is very much pro-human intelligence, pro-authentic intelligence talk, where I would like to walk you through my own understanding and research and learning from human intelligence, how it works and how we all can use it to make AI better for better service of mankind. That said, here is a bit about myself. I have been working with Accenture Song from the last 2 years in Germany, working as a productivity engineering manager, also an editor and co-founder of Freedom with Testers magazine, supporting Association of Software Testing USA in its board of director and VP of education. Whenever I'm not testing, I'm basically thinking about testing. How many of you are from India here? Anybody who can read and speak Hindi? Yes, no? Don't hesitate? No one. Okay, I will read it for you. These are verses from an ancient epic of Ramayana. It says, Satyameva Ishwaro Loke Satyam Padma Samashrita Satyamulani Sarvani Satyanna Asti Parampadam. It means truth is supreme and all virtues follow truth. All are rooted in the truth and there is nothing higher than the truth. You might be wondering, what does truth have to do with any one of us, the tech bros and sisters here? Let me tell you, the software business that we are in, it's pretty much a knowledge work. We all are knowledge workers, be it a programmer, a tester, product owner. Everyone who works in the software field is a knowledge worker, and our work has value only when this knowledge that we operate on is true knowledge. If there is a deviation from truth in this knowledge that we work on, we tend to create faulty products, the products that create problems. So it is very important for us to understand which version of truth we are working on, what is the true status of our product, and more importantly, how to arrive at the true knowledge of the things that we operate with. And that's what I'm gonna walk you through in this talk about my journey about finding truth about stuff. Human AI interactions and why we should care. I firmly believe my friend Tariq must have walked you through lots of interesting stuff about the advancements in AI and how beneficial it is. I'm gonna propose my counter view, not necessarily a counter view, but some of the challenges I still feel AI needs to be better at, and together we all can see how we can contribute to the making AI more reliable, more useful than it already is. There are reasons, despite AI being so useful and so magical in its sense, while we are working with the AI, particularly as a testers, I made some experiences which make me wonder, are we there yet? Can I fully trust? Can I fully rely on the outcomes created? What is it? What is it that's missing? And here is some examples. This is quite literally from the last week. I was searching for some recommendations on ChatGPT about some popular talks on the topic of selective automation. I asked ChatGPT to recommend me some stuff, some popular talks, and it gave me the list of around 10 software testing conferences and the talks that people presented. One of the recommendations was from my friend Bas, and that made me very happy. I jumped with joy and I wrote, Bas, could you please give me the link to this presentation that you have presented in this and this conference at this time? I'm very keen on understanding it further and I would like to make some recommendation to my friends. It took Bas a while to really figure out what's going on, and he said, Lalit, thanks for reaching out, but I never gave this talk ever. And I do not have any slides in my archive covering this topic, and this was surprising. Yes, there is a history of ChatGPT making things up from past, but if something like this is still happening in recent period, it alarms a bell, and it tells us that we are still not there yet where we query something, when we put some prompt and we can readily rely on the results. And I made a similar experience with another LLMs out there, and the results have not been that satisfactory. Bit an old example, but it still hurts my sentiments as an Indian. There was a time when on Midjourney, if you would search for images, it was so stereotypically biased. If you would search for an Indian man, it would always show the result of a person, an old man wearing saffron turban. I am immensely proud of my Indian heritage of saints and experts, but I am equally proud of the scientists and doctors and engineers and Bollywood stars we have in there. Why not their pictures? So this stereotype concerned me. I believe you all are aware of the racial biases that were shown by Google's Gemini and the apology they had to come out with. Until yesterday, I couldn't produce some results for the images that I wanted Gemini to work on for the presentation. There was an interesting study done by Gary Smith and Jeffrey Funk, some interesting people, knowledgeable people in the field of artificial intelligence who have been performing some experiments, and they published a big paper, if I'm not wrong, about the test they performed about critical thinking capabilities of LLMs, and LLMs they worked with flunked the test. When it comes to critical thinking, AI flunked the test. And this test was, I believe, done somewhere in March, if I'm not wrong. These are pretty recent findings. I read an interesting article last week on the myths surrounding AI. On one hand, I am fully convinced that AI is here to stay and we must collaborate with AI to take maximum benefit out of it and make ourselves more productive to solve the problems that we could perhaps take longer to solve. However, the myths that are there compel us to drop our guard and blindly believe things that we are still supposed to be skeptical about and critically think before taking the bait. Control myth talks about AI being promoted as all encompassing, everything that can be controlled, but it still has reliability issues that nobody is probably talking about. Here is an example. I was researching and trying to gather some, create some wordle of different kind of myths that I have been listed down in this article on tech policy. ChatGPT gave me inconsistent replies. It was not really reliable when I was asking it to give me better image, more readable form of things. Productivity myth talks about AI being a boon for improving our productivity. To some extent, it certainly is true, but there have been reports where people reported to have reduced their productivity by 70% because it was an overhead for them to do their work with the help of AI. I believe there was a report on Microsoft's AI products being sent back by the people who are using it because they did not really see a return over investment in the purchases they made. What does this all tell us? Prompt myth. It is made to believe that we just have to prompt, we just need to get better at prompt engineering and the outputs will be fine-tuned. But there has been a recent discussion happening around shadow prompting, which apparently is something that needs to become brought on the forefront, and people should be made aware that their prompts are not directly going to the system, but they are manipulated, they are updated, they are worked on behind the scene to create the results that we believe are useful. Learning myth. By definition, AI doesn't really learn. It only approximates the things based on the data we are providing. So when we are making comparison about human learning with machines learning, these are distinctively different things, and this difference is supposed to be understood well. Creativity myth. AI mimics creativity. It doesn't create something genuine of its own. This is the difference that we must understand. Scaling myth. I think this is still a new thing where it's propagated that we all just have to do is scale it more, add more data, train with more data sets, and AI will be fine. These are all still arguments based on theories, not proven with the results, and even if you train with more data, the outcomes have not been that outstanding the way things have been supposed to be as per the claims. And this concerns me. If AI is supposed to be here for all of us, and if we are to collaborate, we definitely need a mechanism of our own to understand and assess and evaluate how reliable it is for us to continue further. Otherwise, you might have heard the stories of New York-based lawyers who got in trouble for simply quoting references from ChatGPT in their court cases, which were simply made up and they were not facts. So these myths surrounding around AI deceive us to drop our guard, and that concerns me. Subbarao Khambapati has done an excellent interview, I believe last month, where he discusses the deductive reasoning and the deductive closure and transitive closure. It's a 1-hour interview where he helps us understand that LLMs are still not good at reasonings. They, particularly for creative tasks, they have fundamental limitations about reasoning, and they cannot provide us the results that we can count on. And these things are important, particularly for testers. If you are to test AI-based applications, and if you do not know how to assess the quality of the test and the results that you are producing, you are probably not doing your job well. So how do we go about understanding how to test all of these things? Gary Marcus, another guy that I respect and I often follow his works, he has also raised several questions about reliability, and the examples that I personally experience are very consistent with these two particular factors about reliability of the AI results coming, and its ability to reason, its ability to give us conclusion based on logical reasoning. Having said that, we still have these limitations with the present state of AI. Does that mean we testers just give up on AI and not use it at all? I think that will be stupid, and that's not what I would like to propose. I believe to take maximum benefit from AI capabilities, it is important for us testers to understand how it really works. More important for us is to understand how human intelligence works. And once we understand the theory behind human intelligence, human reasoning, deductive reasoning, logical reasoning, only then we will be able to train AI to at least come closer to the way we function, and at least then we could really call it an intelligent machine. Because approximation of things is different, and having that compatible intelligence close to humans is absolutely different thing. And AI, I believe, the one that we are currently using is far from that. So what does it really mean? For that, it's important that we understand the deep nature of testing first. If we generally discuss about testing, people call it as validation and verification of this and that. But the nature of testing, the nature of meaningful testing is way deeper than simply checking things and calling it works. The definition of testing, the work of testing that I follow, coming from rapid software testing philosophy and my own understanding of testing from last 15 years, for me it is about finding true knowledge about systems and product we test. The systems we operate in, the project we work with, the people we are collaborating with, and the products we are testing, they all have a relationship between them, and testing is about empirically investigating these three things and the relationship between them. And in this process, we perform several cognitive activities. We do indexation, we process the information, the knowledge that we obtain, we experiment with it, we observe things, we draw inferences, we draw conclusions, and then we communicate the information. Going wrong on any of these activities is likely to create faulty results. It's likely to create misinformation that creates problem for rest of us. So when we think about testing, we must understand that testing as an activity is innately human. It's cognitive, it's intellectual work, and anything going wrong in that processing, in that intellectual task, is likely to create problems. And the same applies to AI. The areas where humans can make mistakes, AI is likely to make mistakes too. So let's first understand what is the true meaning of testing, how we can improve on that, and that will help us in turn to test AI applications better and train them even further to eliminate those problems. I would like you to watch this video.
Well, over 100 years ago, an American poet put to rhyme an ancient parable. The first verse of the poem speaks about 6 men of Industan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. In the poem, each of the 6 travelers takes hold of a different part of the elephant and then describes to the others what he has discovered. One of the men finds the elephant's leg and describes it as being round and rough like a tree. Another feels the tusk and describes the elephant as a spear. A third grabs the tail and insists that an elephant is like a rope. A fourth discovers the trunk and insists that the elephant is like a large snake. Each is describing truth. And because his truth comes from personal experience, each insists that he knows what he knows. The poem concludes, and so these men of Hindustan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. that someone could make a judgment based on one aspect of truth and apply it to the whole seems absurd or even unbelievable. On the other hand, have we ever been guilty of the same pattern of thought? We have so many examples of things that mankind once knew were true, but have since proven false. For example, in spite of an one-time overwhelming consensus, the Earth isn't flat. The stars don't revolve around the Earth. And of course, man actually can fly, even break the sound barrier. Often truth is rejected because it doesn't appear to be consistent with previous experiences. The thing about truth is that it exists beyond belief. It is true even if nobody believes it. We simply don't know all things. We can't see everything. As you accept the responsibility to seek after truth with an open mind and a humble heart, you will become more tolerant of others, more open to listen, more prepared to understand, more inclined to build up instead of tearing down. And you will be more willing to go where God wants you to go. It is my prayer that you will seek the truth earnestly and unceasingly, that you will yearn to drink from the fount of all truth, whose waters are pure and sweet, a well of water springing up into everlasting life.
So that's the story about truth, and to the best of my knowledge, this story is at least 1,000 years old. In Nyaya school of thought that I'm going to talk about shortly after, there is a reference of And Gaja Nyaya, which means elephant and blind man. And this story beautifully explains the challenge with finding true knowledge and how difficult it is if we take our understanding of things for granted. The challenge about true knowledge lies in many things. It lies in our limitations as humans, how we perceive that knowledge, how we process it, how we interpret results, what kind of inferences we draw, what kind of cognitive biases we have in place, the errors we might make through perceptions. Maybe our sensory inputs and sensory equipments are faulty itself. We are having some blind beliefs. We probably are doing false comparisons. Maybe someone who was supposed to be deemed as an expert told us incorrect things. So chances of we humans understanding something incorrectly, or chances of we humans operating on wrong knowledge are high. And whenever we operate on wrong knowledge, we tend to create results which are untrue, which are not productive, which are creating problems in the world. Take any examples. CrowdStrike. What happened? That's an excellent example of how things go wrong and create problems for rest of the world if we are not careful about things that we operate on. So when we talk about knowledge work and when we talk about true of the information we are operating on, it is essential, it is very important for us to make sure that we humans are making every precaution to arrive at the true knowledge of the things. My pursuit of finding this truth about true knowledge brought me to Nyaya school of thought. It has been quite positively overwhelming experience to study Nyaya school of thought, Nyaya philosophy, learning from it and understanding human cognition, understanding theory of knowledge that opened my mind to see things differently, that has helped me become better tester, and also helping me to understand AI better, interact with AI better, and that's what I'm going to share with you. So for those who don't know, Nyaya literally means rule or justice. It's a leading Indian school of philosophy, quite ancient, probably dating since the beginning of first yuga, and it's known for its contribution to the theory of logic. It's the foundation of modern epistemology. In one line, I would call it as a science of correct reasoning and logical reasoning. Nyaya has a lot of treatises which talk about knowledge, the realism, and the theory of error, the theory of causation, how we interpret things and where things can go wrong. And if we understand it carefully, the same is going to help us improve AI. My key learnings from Nyaya have been that to succeed with the knowledge work, 3 things are essential: understanding the nature and form of knowledge, understanding methods of valid knowledge, and dialectical inquiry, which means having healthy debate with our colleagues, with our people around us, to arrive at a logical reasoning and to deduct a conclusion about things. If you are to understand the nature of knowledge, there have been several theories put together by experts. There is an ACT theory that says knowledge is basically an activity of mind. There is a relation theory that says knowledge is basically a relation between certain entities. There is a quality theory that says knowledge is essentially a quality of an object, like an attribute of object itself. The Nyaya theory recognizes knowledge as a cognition of objects and considers it as most fundamental fact of reality. I found Nyaya's understanding of knowledge very close to how we software professionals deal with information. Their realism about knowledge and their methods about finding true knowledge, I found them to be very practical and very relevant in the software implementation. If we are to understand the intelligence, the intellect, as per Nyaya theory, in Sanskrit, intelligence is called buddhi. Buddhi is dependent on 3 foundational things. Jnana, it means knowledge. Pramana, it means method of knowledge. And Vyapti basically talks about how all encompassing are the interaction. So Jnana is basically the result of our intellect's engagement with the world through valid means of knowledge, which is Pramana. We will discuss Pramana more in detail, but these are the methods of acquiring knowledge. There are valid methods, there are invalid methods. Depending on how we understand them to be, we get the quality of knowledge we obtain. Vyapti is about understanding the relationship between cause and effect and more or less universal connection between the two. All in all, this is essential for us to understand and also for applying to artificial intelligence when we are developing the applications, when we are training the LLMs, when we are even testing them. If we humans don't understand how our own intelligence works, if we don't understand how we are likely to make mistakes in pursuing things, the chances are very thin that we will be able to contribute for developing better artificial intelligence. So digging deeper on the intelligence, here are some characteristics of the intelligence. And this is where I kind of still hesitate to call artificial intelligence as truly intelligent thing, because intelligence in its true sense is a lot about intuitive insights, which is called pratibha in Sanskrit. It's about discrimination ability, an ability to decide between right and wrong, distinguish between right and wrong, viveka. It's about smriti, memory, about analytical ability, about logical reasoning. And as far as my understanding is concerned, I believe AI excels quite better at perception, but it still lacks in all of these other abilities. And that's basically where I think we still have opportunity to help AI grow. And this is essentially why we also need to understand human intelligence and its characteristics and how we can develop it further. The how part of our intelligence, how human intelligence works, is basically through presentational cognition, which is called anubhava, and the memory. Our way of understanding things, our way of acquiring knowledge is about making our experiences and acquiring knowledge through different ways, different methods. According to Nyaya, there are different ways of acquiring knowledge. The ones that are based on direct perception, direct interaction are called anubhava based knowledge. There are valid pramas, and in valid pramas we talk about perception, how we understand things, it's called pratyaksha prama. Inference, we observe things, we draw our inferences, and that helps us perceive certain things to be the way they are. We use upamana, which means comparison, we compare things before making a decision. We also use testimony, like living oracle in terms of rapid software testing terminology. Someone who is considered as an expert, someone whose authority in knowledge cannot be challenged, a word coming from that person, a suggestion coming from that person can also become a source of knowledge. But then there are other ways where we acquire knowledge, but it is likely to be error prone. For example, samasya, which means doubt. We read something, we understand something, we acquire something, but we are still confused about it. Viparya, which is error. We make errors, and through those errors we still acquire knowledge. And tarka, which basically means hypothetical argument. All of these characteristics are so essential for us to get it right, and so also AI needs to get it right to give us more reliable results. When we talk about memory, it talks about our past experiences or the things that are there in our memory about the knowledge we made. Maybe someone saw a snake, and anything like that looks like a snake will become a snake in our mind. That is basically how our memory manipulates us. So yathartha memory means true memory, and false memory is ayathartha. So all in all, if we are to produce right results, if we are to produce tangible results, if we are to really find information and true information about things, our way of thinking has to go through some of these things. Unless and until we combine all of these different methods and thoroughly evaluate, scrutinize, and be skeptical about the information presented to us, be it by any source of information, be it through AI, it is unlikely that we will be able to arrive at the conclusion. And which is why I strongly recommend all of you to understand how authentic intelligence works. Only then we will be able to understand AI better, and only then we will be able to train AI better. Another important aspect that still bothers me, and probably for many people this is still a concern, which is about ethics. Particularly concerning AI, we do not know how transparent things are. Most of the LLM models or most of the AI applications still operate black box unless you are building them yourself. So Nyaya school of thought emphasizes on niti, which means ethical conduct for knowledge workers. We people, the people producing software, testing software, have a moral responsibility to do right things, to produce right results, to do right logical reasoning, to be able to distinguish between right and wrong. And for that it is very essential that we understand the difference and the connection between how knowledge and the methods of knowledge impact our ability to be ethically correct. So truth and ethics in knowledge basically talk about knowledge must be grounded in truth. Just any random information coming from anywhere cannot be true information. If we are to make ethically correct decisions, it needs to be based on true information. And making moral decisions requires us to have a commitment for seeking truth. If we are not truth seekers, we are not doing our jobs well. I have seen so many testers taking acceptance criteria as a source of truth and simply deriving further test cases or automating that. Very rarely they challenge the criteria in place. Very rarely They try to go deeper and analyze those requirements for their accuracy, their certainty, their applicability. It is our responsibility as a knowledge worker, particularly as a testers, to be truth seeker. And if we are not seeking truth, if we are taking things and information coming to us for granted, we are not doing an ethically better job. Same goes to logical reasoning and action. If our actions are to be ethical, our logical reasoning needs to be done based on the fact. And the tarka in Nyaya philosophy, which is like logical rigor, it essentially talks about how our ethical behavior can be guided. We need to be able to have correct reasoning to be able to shape moral behavior, and it is equally essential for us to be able to logically evaluate the consequences of the choices we are making, the actions we are doing, or even the information we are communicating to our stakeholders. Same goes to moral responsibility, and this is particularly the area of concern when it comes to AI. We need to be able to transparent with the things and methods and procedures we are following to test. We should be able to tell the story of the testing, how we tested something, what was the strategy, why we selected the tools that we were using, why certain decisions were made, for what reason. This transparency is essential. And when it comes to operations of LLMs and AI, currently most of the things, as I said, are black box, which create questions about its ethics, and there are still discussions happening in the community about ethics in AI. I believe we testers, if we understand how ethics in the knowledge area in intellectual field work, we will be able to better influence when we are interacting with AI applications and contributing in their development. Debate and dialogue as an ethical practice. Many people are not fond of engaging into ethical debate or challenging each other's ideas, but unless we do that in a respectful way, in a way that stands up to scrutiny, it's very difficult for the craft to make a progress. I believe James Buck and Michael Bolton started this interesting activity of inviting all the people who are experimenting in the field of artificial intelligence. If you are contributing, if you are practicing, if you are creating new things, all of the people have been coming together regularly. They are presenting their learning, they are challenging each other, and I think this is the beautiful way to bring truth on the forefront and not just fall prey to marketing lies and any kind of claims that are made without critically evaluating them. So, Nyaya values debate and dialogue, which is called Vada, as a means of arriving truth. The story of blind man and the elephant essentially also builds a very good case for why we all should exchange our ideas and arrive at a conclusion as a common truth finding. My perception of things can be different from your perception of your ideas, and so also with other people. We humans are blinded by our biases, but we are also gifted by our different abilities. And when multiple people with their own research and finding come together, they are likely to create a better result. That's why people do peer workshops, and these kind of discussions and debates in an ethical way, healthy way, are essential. And also for AI, we need to have more discussions and debates on its applicability, on its transparency, how things are working, how they can be built together. You could build some community of practice within your organization and organize these discussions on regular basis to understand how things have been the way they are. When I was trying to figure out what exactly my interaction with LLM means, I ended up concluding that all the interaction that I had with AI models have been manipulative in nature, and I don't mean it in a bad way. So there are different models of reasoning. A manipulation model talks about an attempt of an individual or a program which tries to convince its point no matter using what method, and this has been my experience with interaction with LLMs unless I question them critically. The veritic model talks about just fundamentally finding truth. And there is erotic model, which is basically about having a meaningful dialogue, having a conversation, questioning each other back, particularly on the doubts that arise from natural conversation. And this erotic model is highly effective when I try to implement it for my interaction with AI. So, if we are to improve the reasoning and reliability of the outputs coming from AI, I strongly recommend you to change your interactions with the LLMs from becoming part of this manipulation transaction and turning it into erotic model. There are several reasons to do that, because intelligence is ultimately about critical thinking, it is about causal reasoning, and it is about also ethical dialogue and decision making. So, what you as a testers can do in this changing context? Do you just accept the things for the way they are? Do you just start using AI applications, start querying it and simply rely on its output, or there is more you can do? Is anybody out from here already testing AI applications? Nobody yet? Anybody going beyond ChatGPT interaction? Okay, I will share some resources later, but a good friend of mine, Rahul Verma, look for him on internet. He has been doing lots of interesting work and research on interacting with LLMs and prompting. His experience and sharing will certainly be beneficial for you. But what Rahul is doing through his work is basically what all testers should be doing. Tariq has been doing outstanding job. Check out his work, because simply prompting and relying on the outputs coming from LLMs is not what we testers are meant to do. If I am to run a team of testers in my organization or wherever I work, for running the LLMs, I would need them to be skeptical. I would like them to be critically thinking about the interactions they are making, and this is basically what your role in the age of AI is. And here are some recommendations that Nyaya can help you with. So, Nyaya theory, Nyaya school of thought has a lot of offerings that people can learn from. It has a treatise on critical thinking. It talks about logical reasoning, skepticism. It talks about valid and invalid methods of knowledge. It talks about niti. It talks about fallacies in inference. It talks about analysis of errors. There is a theory of causations, and literally a lot of these things, if you understand them well, are very practical examples of using that knowledge for making AI better. So, I invite you all to read up on Nyaya and understanding for yourself how you can use it to make yourself a better tester than you are, and how you can implement that knowledge for improving AI applications. I have some things that I personally use from Nyaya, and I will share that with you. So, Nyaya syllogism is very popular and very powerful. So, if you don't know what syllogism means, it's basically a three-part logical argument: subject, object, method, typically popular as Aristotle's syllogism in Western world. I particularly find Nyaya syllogism more powerful when it comes to testing and critical thinking, because it has 5 parts. So, it talks about thesis, the reason, the example, application, and conclusion. So, it's such a powerful tool to interact with AI and also to analyze anything if you want to train your mind for critical thinking. Why are we doing something? What are we trying to establish? Why do we believe what it is the way it is? What does that establish anything from that? Why do we believe? And so, what is the deductive conclusion about that? Here is an example. I call it trick heuristic. So, any topic that you want to discuss, anything that you want to establish as a hypothesis or as a truth, it needs to go through this series of interaction. You start with thesis, you go establishing the middle term, you try to bring in realistic examples, you find its application, and then it helps you arrive at a conclusion. Here are some examples that I would like you to take a look. A trick heuristic can help you for critical thinking of requirements. It can help you for bug advocacy. It can help you for intellectual debate and discussion. I will walk you through some examples quickly. For example, of requirement analysis. Purchase button should have green color and bold text. That was one of the requirement I came from. And when I started analyzing it critically, I asked, okay, why do we believe this is going to solve the problem? Because our UX team said it increases the sales. And then I had to go back with the question, why does that establish anything? The answer was basically they ran some tests, and with the green button, 90% users made purchase. And why do we believe that? It basically means from the UX side, the interviewed users, they said green color and bold text of the button convinced them to click. And the conclusion of all this was basically that, yeah, purchase button should have green color and bold text. Implementing this when you are interacting with AI has helped me to find reasons. There was a research recently published, I believe maybe 3 months back, I read that if you question your LLMs back instead of simply accepting the output coming from them, if you question them back, it improves the machine's ability to give correct answers in its further attempts to discuss the same topic. This is something I experimented and it has been working. Here are some other examples. You can use Trick for bug advocacy. I will let you go to the slides later on. We are running short of time. And another example of using Trick for deductive reasoning through dialogue. It is important that critically thinking about the discussions, about the requirements, about any information presented to us, and going through it with this series of questions helps you identify either more information, a new information, or it helps you arrive at a conclusion which is tested by all of these different possibilities. So the chances of us perceiving things wrong, chances of us using wrong information are very less. I have shared some examples after the presentation is shared with you. You could go through these links. These are my 2 conversations with ChatGPT, where I first discussed the flat earth theory, and then I also discussed selective execution of automated checks. And that way of interacting with LLMs has helped me arrive at a real, reliable information than simply believing in something that was made up. And I also realized that when I use this technique of questioning back and asking more questions that were coming from natural doubt, I started getting more reliable answers. So selective execution of automated checks, when I first tried, I got made up answers from ChatGPT around some people talking about the topics which were not existent. But when I used the trick method for interacting with ChatGPT for similar topics, same topic, it started giving me more reliable answers that I could validate on the internet. The reason for using trick heuristic for interacting with AI is obvious. It helps you distinguish between inference for yourselves and inference for LLMs. It helps you navigate your interaction away from manipulation model that AI by default uses, and you move it to the erotic model of reasoning, which is essential if you don't want to get manipulated. And it guides the discussion through notion of relevance and the diversity of intellect, your own intelligence, artificial intelligence, and every answer to the questions you ask gives you new information which is useful. The more you know, the better you know. Nyaya also has an essential outlook on theory of errors. It's called Khatyavada, and I believe if we understand why we humans make errors, how we make those errors in perceiving knowledge, we can certainly implement those precautions on training AI. For example, in Nyaya, misidentification is called asat khati, and it's an error when we are identifying something which is X, but we identify it as Y. There is a rope and we call it a snake. This misidentification of object results in an error. You might have noticed AI applications typically make mistakes in processing the image, in recognizing the image. They call something to something else. And if we are to understand the nature of these mistakes, why they happen, we can better train our AI applications to avoid those mistakes. For example, to deal with asat khati, misidentification of things, we could use diverse training data, we could add some more context awareness. There is similar illusionary cognition, which is about anyata khati, where we are wrongly perceiving an item and creating wrong inference. Same things happen with AI too. We could use more improved model variations there. We could test more thoroughly. There is a Karana dosha which talks about basically defective instruments. If your sensory equipments are wrong, you are likely to produce faulty outcomes. So when we are training our AI models, our LLMs, all this information about error and the way they happen, why they happen, will help us avoid those as humans, and this knowledge will also help us take necessary precautions for AI to avoid those and give more reliable results. Nyaya theory of knowledge, and particularly the Nyaya's Khativada, which is about theory about errors, has a lot of useful information that can certainly help us create more reliable AI. I invite you to research a bit, dig it deeper, and see the results for yourself. So all in all, if we pay attention on systematic analysis, attention to context, correction of biases, and eliminating the fallacies, we are likely to create more reliable AI. And that's basically what I had to share with you in a nutshell. Not collaborating with AI is not an option. It will be very stupid of anyone not to use AI and take an advantage of it for the tremendous amount of capability it offers. But it is essential that we know how to collaborate with AI smartly, and more importantly, how to stay skeptically curious. My takeaway for you about collaborating with AI would be, please try to understand how human intelligence works and try to train your own mind to be more mindful, more careful about avoiding mistakes. Try to understand how AI works, how approximated intelligence works, and implement that understanding in avoiding those mistakes. Mastering prompt engineering. As I said, check out work from Rahul Verma. He has been doing an outstanding job. Tarek has been having lots of interesting publications on prompting. Try different methods, find out how it works, try to be more skillful, try to be more expert in your interactional expertise. The less mistakes you make, the more reliable outcomes it will help you to produce. And most importantly, strive to be an expert tester. We have Rob here. He can talk the whole day about becoming an expert tester. Unless and until you establish yourself as an expert tester, in the age of AI, the impact you would produce will be marginal. So if you want to be relevant and more meaningful and be relevant in the age of AI, critical thinking is not optional. You need to be an excellent tester. You need to be critical thinker. You need to be great at logical reasoning, and everything else will fall in place. In my opinion, based on whatever limited I know about AI, I think at this very stage, interacting with AI is like interacting with human child. Our ability to bring out the best from AI depends on our own expertise to interact with it effectively, all the while making sure that we are not getting manipulated, much like responsible parenting. I have a son of 7 years old, and I know how smart he is in manipulating me to get what he wants, and interacting with AI is not that different. If you want to effectively use AI, you need to know how to outsmart it, and for that, understanding authentic intelligence is the only way that I can think of. Thank you for listening. Before I close, I would like to dedicate this talk to a dear friend, Nishi-san, who passed away last year. Nishi-san has had a great influence on the way I think about testing. We used to exchange ideas quite often, and I'm very sure if he would have been here today, he would be very interested in discussing this topic and taking that research further. With that, I thank you for listening patiently. Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lalikumar. Very informative indeed.